Thank you, Charlie. Today is Buddha's birthday. And well, today's when we would usually celebrate Buddha's birthday. And because of the Zoom world, everyone in our Sangha who would ordinarily say, hey, we got to arrange a ceremony for Buddha's birthday, forgot to do that. And so I thought that you'll have to keep yourself muted, but let's very quickly sing Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Buddha, happy birthday to you. Okay, thank you, Buddha. All right. So before I ask for questions, I want to sort of build on Charlie's talk to sort of clarify something that he implicitly said, but it's not often said explicitly. And so I want to say it explicitly. You have ignorance on the one hand, and then you have don't know on the other hand. And ignorance, it's often said ignorance is ignorance of your true nature. And what that really means is that ignorance means knowing that, thinking that you know something. So ignorance is thinking that you know something. And don't know is also sometimes called great doubt. It has a very long history in Zen and Buddhism. This notion of great doubt, ignorance, great doubt, don't know, and so on. It's a very, very long history. And so don't know is recognizing that you don't know anything, and don't know is actually your true self. So it's very interesting. So this mind before thinking, this mind, Charlie gave this quote from this dialogue with Matsu about, and to stop a baby from crying. Don't know is the mind of a really small baby, a baby that's first born, looking around. Wow. What is this? And that's the spirit, this what is this don't know, this meditation technique on the in-breath, what is this? Or a lot of people use what am I? And on the out-breath, don't know. That's the spirit. That's the spirit of just looking around, wow. Where we don't slam down the curtains and the blinds and the gates of all our ideas and our preconceptions. Just whoa. Just seeing things as they are right now. That's don't know mind. So I wanted to thank Charlie for bringing up don't know mind and ignorance. And now I'll ask if there are any questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
I was wondering about how Taoism relates to Buddhism, and also how Taoism relates to Zen.
Okay, so Stan gave a class on this recently, right? Is that correct? So you can look it up on YouTube, on our YouTube page, and you'll find a long video about it. So Taoism is independent of Buddhism. It was an indigenous Chinese religion. Buddhism came from India to China. I realize I'm gesturing, you can't see. So Taoism, a Chinese religion. Buddhism came from India to China. And my teacher, Zen Master Sung San, used to say, and he's not the only one, Buddhism and Taoism got married and had a baby, and that baby is called Zen, which has some truth to it, because Zen really developed, and supposedly was brought over from India by Bodhidharma, but it really developed in the Tang and Sung and early Sung, late Tang, early Sung dynasties in China. And so since it developed very much in China, of course, it was influenced by indigenous Chinese religions, and particularly by Taoism. They're really quite different. They have some things in common. All traditions that have some kind of meditation in them have a lot in common, whether it's Christian meditation, Jewish meditation, Hindu meditation, Taoist meditation, Buddhist meditation, any kind of meditation, Muslim meditation, doesn't matter. They always have something in common, but they're also quite different. The Taoist temples, Taoism is the way it is contemporaneously. It's very magical. You go to the Taoist temple and you light incense. You do things so that your kid will get into a good college, or you'll make a lot of money, or find a good husband, or your son will find a good wife, or whatever. So there's this kind of sort of that's sort of the function of Taoist temples in a lot of ways. And anyone who's Taoist will tell me, "Oh no, 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 no! You really, Um, but people also, when we went to Korea once and we were picked up by from the airport by a woman who practiced in our school, and she told us that she went and did, I think it was 300 bows every morning at the local temple, so her son would get into a good college. So, human beings, we're all human beings. But yeah, they are quite different, and they're also similar. And Taoism did have a lot of influence on Buddhism. I don't know if it goes the other way. And you should look up Stan's class. And if Stan, do you want to add anything to that at all? Okay. All right. So yeah, go to YouTube, Kansas Zen Center, all lowercase, one word. The page will pop up. You'll find Stan's class, and you can look it up. And of course, there are many, many books on this. You can go to the, well, I don't know if people go to the library anymore, but you can look it up online and get something for your device and read all about Taoism and Buddhism. One big difference is that Buddhism is very upfront about not for me, about compassion, about acting for others. Buddhism is very, very, really puts that in the center. And as far as I know, Taoism doesn't do that so much, but I don't really know. So, okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I have a question. My friend Bob Miner, who you might know, is giving a talk to a group that I belong to this evening. And he is talking about death in Eastern religions. And I wonder, is there differences in the various forms of Buddhism?
Of course.
Can you briefly tell me what it is?
Well, I don't know all the forms of Buddhism, but I do know that, for example, in Tibetan Buddhism, rebirth is really at the center.
Okay.
You can't talk about Tibetan Buddhism without talking about rebirth, because that's their whole system of leadership, is that, you're the whatever Dalai Lama because your predecessor, Dalai Lama, was reborn as you. So it's absolutely core to Tibetan Buddhism. Whereas I have seen Asian Zen masters, not, my teacher absolutely believed in rebirth. I mean, that was his explanation for all the world's troubles. Oh, that person's a bad person because he was a snake in a previous life. I mean, there's nothing wrong with snakes. They do a lot of good in this world. But, he had that kind of mind. And, he really believed in rebirth. But he didn't care if I did. He made me a teacher. He didn't quiz me. He didn't say, "Hey, do you believe in rebirth?" Because I would have said, "No, I don't." Now I don't care about birth or rebirth. I care about what is it that would be reborn. That's in fact, the Kansas Zen Center Facebook page put up a little quote from me. I think it was yesterday about that. But so in Zen, it's not that important. And I've actually heard Asian Zen masters, Zen masters born in Asia, who have said, "I don't believe in rebirth." So in Zen, it's not important, and in Tibetan Buddhism, it's absolutely central. So yeah, there are a lot of differences. But everybody dies. That's what's really important. It's not what do you believe about death. It's that, because all our beliefs are just beliefs. They're just things we make up. But the point is that we all die. That's the thing to look at. And then, getting back to what Charlie was saying, if we make conclusions about that, oh, I'm going to go to heaven, I'm okay. Oh my God, I'm afraid I might go to hell, that kind of thing. I hope I'm reborn as a frog because I like frogs, whatever. I hope I'm reborn in the two sheet of heaven. My teacher, somebody asked him, and it was very interesting because he was, in fact, at that moment, he was dying. He was on a trip to Europe, and this was many years before he died, but he had a very severe heart condition, and no one knew that he did. And someone asked him in Germany, I think it was Germany, they said to him, you're a great Zen master, when you die, where will you go? And he said, I go hell, you know. And they said, what? You're a great Zen master? Yeah, I go to hell, start Zen Center. Because in hell they need Zen centers, they need to practice Zen in hell. And so, anyway, but I've lost the track of my thing. Yeah, so it doesn't matter like what we think. Like, I don't know, he died, and I don't know if he went to some Buddhist hell. I don't know what happened, you know. But everybody dies, and that's what we have to face. And we make up these nice little stories about it, to sort of comfort ourselves, make ourselves feel better, whatever. Or we make these terrible stories to frighten ourselves or frighten other people into behaving the way we want them to behave. Oh, you do that, you're going to go to hell, that kind of thing. But what's important is to really accept, I'm going to die. And to live with that recognition. That's the important thing. And what we think happens, how do we know? Unless you believe in like past life regression memories, but then, well, why should you, you can tell me that, and then I'll say, well, how do you know that that's an actual memory and not something you made up, right? So it's like, it's not something like, how many fingers are in my hand? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not like that. So it's interesting what different religions think or what different human beings think about what happens when we die. But the important thing is to really live your life recognizing that, because most of us live most of the time as if we're never going to die. And that causes all kinds of problems, because then we behave in ways that cause all kinds of problems for us and for other people. You have all these people who smoke up a storm or eat really bad food, and you say, you're going to get health problems. And they're like, oh, it's not going to bother me, and then one day, guess what? It does. So you can hurt yourself that way. Or mostly what we do is we hurt other people that way. We act in ways that cause damage to others because we believe that we're going to go on forever. Now, we know that we won't, but inside, we don't really believe that we won't go on forever. We think we're really immortal. And, then you have people like Elon Musk, who's trying to live forever or whatever. I mean, you have all these like really, really rich people who do these weird things, trying to live forever. But to really accept, no, I'm going to die, and you're going to die, and we're all going to die. And what do we do with this? How do we live with this? And then our life actually has a solid basis, because it's based in truth instead of some story we tell about ourselves. So thank you for your question, and I'm sure Bob Miner will give a wonderful talk.
Yeah, I think he will.
He's quite wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
I've recently been trying to do prostrations more, and I've noticed that I, from my family, have like a weaker lower back, and it's been causing some pain after doing them. And I'm wondering if there's a way to minimize that.
I'm about to show you.
Okay.
So I don't know if we'll be able to, if I can get this far enough away. The secret to doing prostrations with a bad back, which you can see my back, the secret to doing a prostrations with a bad back is not to go down like that. The secret is to keep your back as straight as possible as you're going down. And now you can't see, I'm at the bottom and you can't see me, so it doesn't really matter. But actually, I'll move this, and you'll see that even as I'm at the bottom, my back is fairly straight. And then, I go down and I do the thing, And then when I come up, it's the same thing. You come up with your knees, and you come up. I have to use my hands because I'm an old lady. You come up with your back as straight as possible. And that's the secret to doing bows with a bad back. And I speak from experience because in my 30s, I could not bow at all. I had such a bad back. I have 2 twisted vertebrae on the bottom of my spine, and it was just impossible. And I went through a lot of therapy and did a lot of stretches and stuff, for like about a half hour a day for decades. And my back, gradually got better, and I was able to start bowing. When you bow the way I just told you, it actually becomes a back exercise. It's actually good for your back. So never do that thing where you dive down. Don't do
Or
that.
like squat straight down.
Yeah,
Almost.
it's almost like a squat, except your knees are going to have to touch the floor. So you're going to have to pitch forward somewhat, but you want to keep that S curve in your back.
Okay.
Where the S curve is, you want to keep that as much as possible. And sometimes like you do have to bend forward, but you're not doing that thing where your spine scrunches up. You don't do that. You just keep it as straight as possible. And the effort is with your knees. The effort is not with your back. The effort is with your knees. Which, if you have bad knees, that becomes a problem. But if you don't have bad knees,
Not yet.
yeah, then you can do that. I also want to say for people who are really, really have terrible physical problems, 5 years ago, I broke my hip, and I discovered that you can do bows from a sitting posture. You can just do that if you have to. I mean, if you really, you can do it sitting in a chair. I mean, when I broke my hip, believe me, I was not sitting full lotus for a long time. I'd sit in a chair. When I was able to hobble to the Zen Center, I had to be off the walker. I had to be using just a cane, so then I could get to the old Zen Center, which was not handicap accessible. And I'd sit myself in a chair, and everyone would do bows, and I'd do my bows sitting in a chair, just like that. Why not? So you can always find a way. And then as my back got better, I discovered that I could do it like kneeling, which I'm not going to demonstrate. Kneeling the way you kneel on a bench or a cushion meditation. And again, just from a kneeling posture, never standing up, just from a kneeling posture, do it. And Margaret, I see that you're going to recommend something.
Yes, I do want to recommend something.
Okay.
That is, a lot of people suffer because when they're doing prostrations, they keep their feet too close together.
Thank you.
And they have the toes pointing forward, and that's really awful for our backs. Mm-hmm. So you want to widen your stance, and then you want to have your toes more like 30, 40, 45. You find what it is. I have scoliosis. One of my legs is longer than the other, so actually I have to do an asymmetrical stance. Sometimes people will look at me funny, but I really have to pitch my left leg out farther. And I learned this from my trainer, that's what I have to do. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and the most important thing that you said, thank you, is that you have to adapt it to who you are. That's really important. You have to adapt it to who you are. And thank you very much. I didn't know that about the legs. I don't know what I do with mine. I think they're close together, but who knows? Anyway, yeah, find what works and do it. Do you like doing bows, Ryan?
No.
So maybe I should say a little
A version.
So I should say a little bit about why we do prostrations. I mean, what a weird thing to do, right? So the reason we do prostrations, there's all kinds of reasons that are given for prostrations. Like we do 108 prostrations, and every prostration represents some kind of, Buddhism doesn't really have the idea of sin, but sort of the equivalent, like some kind of, bad thing. And you can even see a list, prostration number 777, but that's bull. We do 108 because that's 2 squared times 3 cubed. And in ancient India, where Buddha arose, they were nuts about number theory. And there's all kinds of magical, mystical, mathematical stuff all over Buddhism and Hinduism. And so it's a kind of magical number. That's why we do that. And the thing about prostrations is that we are, and people have heard me say this many times, so I'll say it again, we are apes. And to get down in the posture at the bottom of the prostration, where, I'm staying in this, but you're like this, your hands are, I don't know, can you see my hands? Yes. Your palms are up, your head should be touching the floor, which it would be if I were not in full lotus. And if your butt is in the air, which is not because I'm sitting in full lotus, and that is a posture of complete submission, right? If you want to tell the aggressive ape who wants your banana that you're no threat, that's the posture you're going to take. But then you stand up. So you get into this posture of submission, and then you stand up. And you get into this posture of submission, and then you stand up. And you do it a lot. On New Year's Day, we get together and do it 500 times. There are people here who do it on their own 500 times a day. There are people who do it 1,000 times a day. Whatever. Some people do it just 3 times a day. But you get into this thing and you repeat it. And it's like it's wired in. It's like you're reprogramming yourself. You're sort of rewiring yourself in the way, long-term meditation also rewires you in a certain way. But this is like you don't even have to think about it. Your mind is irrelevant. Your body is doing all of the work. And what happens is you get this sort of strong center, this inner strength, and at the same time you get this open heart. It's a very interesting thing. As you do these prostrations, something happens. And especially if you do a lot of them, even 108, it's because it's, effortful, the same way like when, runner's high, when you run long distances and then sort of your troubles kind of disappear, you become less self-obsessed. And when you do prostrations, you become less self-obsessed. It's really interesting. And so this sort of thing sort of happens like magically without you having to put any mental effort into it. And then Stan always likes me to say you're revolving around your center of gravity. So your center of gravity is kind of you're kind of moving around it in a certain way, and that plays a certain role also in it. So I encourage people to do prostrations, even if you can only do 3. I really encourage prostrations. They're really quite wonderful. And this year we were not able to do the 500 prostrations for the new year because it just doesn't work over Zoom. We just couldn't figure out a way to make it work. And I asked people, I polled people, I sent emails. I said, you want to do this? And everybody said, no. But I hope next year we can do it. Because it's really great. Yeah. Thank you. Well, it's past time. So it's time for announcements.